Hello, and welcome back to the Pure Nintendo Podcast. This is your weekly dose of all things Nintendo. My name is Jemma, and joining me this week, I have my two excellent friends. I have Kirk. Welcome back, Kirk.
Hey, hello, everyone.
Hello, welcome back, and also to, in more ways than one, hello, hello. And Trev, welcome back, Trev. We missed you last week.
Yeah, I missed you guys too. I enjoyed the show. I enjoyed listening to it, but it's a lot different being here talking to you guys than, just shouting at my TV while I hear you guys trying to, remember the name of President Hudson from Zelda or, whatever the topic happens to be. It's not the same, so I'm glad to be here.
That's true. I failed every, and you know what? Since I've been playing it again, I have yet to run into that fellow who's putting up the President Hudson signs. So he's disappeared on me. I fear he's lost his job. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna give one quick update on that because I did mention that I wanted to go in and clear out Lorelei Village. What's it called? Um, I did. I got down to the very last person. There was like one dude left, and he was a very strong fellow on top of the boat. And he knocked me into the water, and I wasn't paying attention to my hearts. And I went back up, and he knocked me again, and he killed me. I had saved my game periodically throughout that whole thing. So, okay, so if I die, I'll just start where I was. And it didn't work. So I had to start the whole thing over again. But that time it worked. I got all the way through it. I beat everyone. I saved Lorelei Village, and I had no idea that they were then going to give me so many other things to do. I had to completely rebuild their village. But I did. I did. Now everyone's happy, and they're giving me free fish, I guess, for the rest of the game.
Yeah. And yeah, we did have a good discussion about Tears of the Kingdom last week and all things to do with the anniversary, of course, which was really fun. And I'm glad you did manage to at least listen to it, Trev. Anyway, so this week we're going to talk about a new game, well, new yet old game that's just come out, which is Paper Mario, The Thousand Year Door, which is, of course, now, how do we describe this? A revamped version of the 2004 original GameCube title. So it's the 20th anniversary, which is pretty exciting. I don't know if they did that on purpose with the timing of the game or it's just coincidence. But 20 sounds like a nice solid number to have a revamped version released. And Trevor and I have had
Well,
some
it's
fun.
certainly better than, some of these other games like 10 years. That doesn't seem very long. So at
No.
least 20 is a couple console generations prior. So it makes a little more sense.
Yeah, exactly. And you think back to the time of the GameCube, 2004. Gee, that's a long time ago. And
Oh.
yeah, there's been quite a few iterations. We've had the Wii and the Wii U and the Switch since then. So yes, we've come a long way in 20 years, that's for sure. And Trev, I do believe you hadn't played the original GameCube title, which seems strange.
It's very strange, Gemma, and I was trying to figure out why. So I was actually looking at other games that came out that year, and unfortunate for this game, that was just a fairly big year, GameCube wise for some games that I got, and not just from Nintendo. Obviously, they had like Metroid Prime 2 was one of their big ones, but there were some other great third party games that year, like Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, Metal Gear Solid, the Twin Snakes, and especially coming off like the N64, which sort of struggled, I think, with third party. Like they had the second party rare games and they had a lot of
Mm,
racing games, but there were certain genres that didn't get much attention. So I was throwing what little money I had at these other games, and poor Mario kind of, I don't know. I overlooked it, and that's my bad.
yeah. Well, I guess you must have known somehow in the recesses of your mind that one day you would get another chance to play it, and that is
I
that is
had
us.
an inkling.
Yeah, and that is this day. So, yeah, and it's such a lovely looking game. I think the original, Paper Mario as a series is such unique visuals anyway with the paper based formatting. But to take to take that concept, and I guess the GameCube at the time looked great, and now 20 years later, I think they've done a really good job with the visuals. So, I mean, your first impressions, Trev, being I guess a first time player, I'm sure you've seen pictures and videos of the original, but how did you find your time in this Switch version of The Thousand Year Door? Have you enjoyed it so far? How far are you?
I have enjoyed it, and I'm about 7 hours in, but it's a little misleading because I've kind of, well, that's not, I don't want to say waste time, but I've done things that aren't necessarily part of the main story, like or the main like chapter idea, you know, because I've enjoyed just exploring like the towns, like Rogueport in the prologue, or Petalburg, and
Mm,
seeing the different characters, because the Paper Mario games I feel like have been a little hit or miss, and probably more recently miss in terms of like characters. I feel like, especially like I think to like Sticker Star on the
mhm,
3DS, the towns were primarily color swap toads. I can't really remember any of them, but already like all these characters seem to have personalities and quirks, and Goombella telling us all about their little backstory, and
mhm.
even in the background, I didn't catch it immediately, but sometimes you see characters talking, like word bubbles pop up, and I'm like, wow, that's so
Yes.
cool. So I've spent a lot of time in the town. I think I'm in the woods now, which I think is the third, well, maybe second chapter proper.
Mhm.
But yeah, I've enjoyed it, and um, certainly the resolution is nice now. Like I remember a lot of the GameCube games, it was a selling point. They'd advertise like 480p,
Mhm.
but even in handheld mode, it's what 720. So, and if you play in the TV, is what 1080. So,
Mhm.
um, I think that's nice, and obviously the paper style I think works well. Nintendo, um, with Paper Mario or Kirby or Yoshi, they're really good with kind of embracing those alternative type of like imagery, if that makes sense. I think.
Yeah, that sort of crafty craft appearance, isn't it? That craft work. Yeah, because you've got
Yeah,
Yoshi's woolen yarn and, what's Kirby's epic yarn or whatever it's called. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yoshi Woolly World and
Yoshi's
Epic
Woolly
Yarn.
World. Yeah.
But
Mhm.
it is cool, like that, just like the animation, you can see like things shaking in the wind or whatever, or blowing about. It's little touches that show, some care and attention to detail.
Mhm. Yeah, even speaking of attention to detail, I wanted to ask if you do this, but when I'm walking around, what is the grass plains kind of area, I suppose in chapter 1 around where Petalburg is, there's those little bushes that you can smash with your hammer. Do you do that?
Mm,
Because
I
there's
do, because there
yes,
might be a coin.
there might be, exactly. I love that little touch.
And you never know when you're gonna want to buy items for the kind. Jumping a little ahead actually, but thinking on the combat, I mentioned how
Mhm,
Paper Mario of late has been inconsistent with characters, and I feel like with combat that's been the case too. Like I feel like the battles in certain Paper Mario games feel like they don't carry a whole lot of weight because there's not
mhm,
really experience in the traditional sense. There's focus on stickers, or like in Origami King, it was more about the gimmick of like that ring you had to line up. I don't even remember what it was called. And I
mhm,
enjoyed that game, but here I feel like the combat, even though it is more simplistic than, an RPG that Kirk might enjoy, it does
mhm,
have, carry some weight to it. It doesn't feel like I'm wasting my time. I'm earning experience. I'm getting
mm.
to fool around with badges and different character abilities and partner abilities. So I really like it.
Yeah, and there is a little bit of tactical, um, component to it. For example, Mario is traditionally in the front, and then the secondary characters in the back, like Umbella or Coops, but you can swap them around, and that really works to your advantage if you've got someone in the enemy side who's in the front row who can't, for some reason, say Goombella can't attack the person at the back, and so you want to get rid of the first person first. And anyway, there's just ways you can tweak the layout, like the order of things, just a little bit, so that it makes it slightly easier for you. And I love that. I just love that little tactical edge to it. I think that's really cool. And knowing
Yeah.
which attacks you go against which enemies, because some have spikes on their head or whatever else that they can't be they can't be attacked with a jump, for example. Um, hey, speaking of the fights, because I love the setup, the battles, I love the setup of the play theater kind of, look to it, the aesthetics, and the crowd that comes in. Have you ever seen Luigi in the crowd?
I don't think I have. I saw Luigi in Rogue Part. He was kind of telling me about like his own adventure. Sounds like it's going on at the same time, and Mario and Goombella were kind of falling asleep, like which I get a
Yeah.
kick out of. But Yeah, I like the crowds. I keep trying to appeal to them, and I don't. I need to learn more about that because certain fights, I'm like, oh, maybe I'll get more stars, and it seems like I don't. So
Mhm.
maybe there's a trick to that, but I like having the audience. I like being able to knock down like background imagery on the stage
Mhm.
sometimes, like a constructed piece of I don't know plywood that's a tree or something might fall on that enemy
Yeah. Yeah.
and damage them. And I keep trying to find ways to do that and burden through like flower points trying to
Yeah. Yeah,
do
exactly.
that. But it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, and sometimes the audience will get up, like a little shy guy might come up and go to the back of the stage, where you might see a panel with a rope or something, and he'll untie it, and something will fall down onto somebody on the stage. It's like this audience
Oh man.
participation, and usually the first time that happened to me, it was helpful because it hit, I think it was like a pail, like a bucket, and it hit one of the enemies and took them out for me. But then the second time, it zapped them and gave them lightning abilities, and so next time they attacked, they zapped me and their attack was strengthened. So it's like, oh, thanks, shy guy. Really helpful.
It's kind of a risk reward because you can see him in the audience getting ready to do stuff, right? And you can kind of run out and stop him.
Yeah, yeah, I think so, and I didn't notice the shy guy until he jumped up, and then I'm like, "Oh, yeah, what was I supposed to press again? Is it X?" I don't even I'm not sure, I wasn't paying attention when Goombella or, the professor told me, someone told me. But, there is a new character, so there are some differences between the, original version and the new version, apart from the graphics and the sound, which has also been revamped. And one of them is this new character, which you may or may not have known is new. I don't remember his name, but he's a little like a pinky purple toad, and you first see him in Rogueport just before
Oh,
yeah.
the battle master.
Battlemaster!
Something like that.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So he's there to give you some tips, and you can practice battles, which is a nice little touch if you're having troubles. Um, yeah, I didn't really feel it. I did it once just to see what it was like, and then I'm like, "Yeah, I
Mm.
I kinda got this." So it's
Well,
fine.
that's good as an option because you may want to. Like I tried skipping certain tutorials because even though I haven't played this game, I've played Mario RPGs, and
Mm.
like the guy there was really like giving me a guilt trip. He's like, "You sure
Yes!
you don't want to learn this?" And like I'm like, "Oh, maybe I really need to." And then I did it, and it's like, "Oh, I didn't need that." So the next time he's like laying it on thick. He's like, "Oh no, don't do like." I'm like, "Nope, I'm done."
Yeah, I noticed that too. I think that's part of
Uh,
the kind of sense of humor of the series. It's kind of known for its, I don't know, tongue-in-cheek quirkiness. It's just, and like you said, the characters, it takes, and I know not all of the Paper Mario games are equal in that sense, but these kind of, especially these early ones, like this is the second in the series, they kind of take
mm.
the existing Mario, the Mushroom Kingdom and all the characters we know and love, and they just throw them into this really cool, special, I don't know, it's almost like it's a spin-off, right? And there's, Koops and there's Goombella. That like they make not just a Goomba, but they have the professor who's a different type of Goomba, the Goombella who's a different type of Goomba. They have like little pirate Goombas. They have all these different versions of the characters, and it's really cool. Like you said, it fleshes them out, gives them lots of personality. It just creates such an interesting narrative, I suppose. It's really engaging, I find.
We were joking about it earlier, but there's even a toad that likes playing the GBA. He was talking
Yeah.
about playing Fire Emblem.
Yes, I thought of you, Kirk, when he said that. He says, "I've been playing my GBA a lot recently. I'm really into this game called Fire Emblem."
Well,
Yes,
good. That holds true. It totally
yeah,
checks with me.
yes. I love that. And I mean, the game is developed by Intelligent Systems. Intelligent Systems? You know, yeah.
Oh, okay. That makes it. Yeah, Intelligent Systems did do the
Yes.
Fire Emblem.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So that's why it makes perfect sense. Yeah. I do love that little tie-in. Speaking of that Toad, Trev, I went back and spoke to him again because the first time you go through his town, he says the GBA little quip. Did you speak to him when you went back through the town the second time?
No, does the dialogue change?
Yes, he mentions the Nintendo 64 the second time.
Wow. So they're
Yeah,
keeping it pure because
yeah, yeah,
they could easily put in like, oh, I'm playing Endless Ocean or whatever
yeah,
the
yeah,
latest Switch game is, but that's
mhm,
pretty cool. Now I'm gonna have to do it. See, that's the
yeah,
sort of stuff that keeps me off the main quest, like
mhm,
knowing that. Or I was even wondering, Gemma, like I have Goombella like as my partner. What happens if I switch to Oh, I forget the name of the turtle. But
Oh,
like, does that dialogue change?
That's a good question. But Koops is the turtle, the Koopa.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
like, am I gonna have to replay through like this again and just
yeah,
alternate like
yeah.
scenes?
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because yeah, you can pass through that town. You're just trying to get to the crystals to the right place to open the pipe to Hooktail's castle or whatever. But you don't have to really speak to anyone there, but you kind of want to because you just
Yeah.
don't know what they're going to say. So
And
yeah,
yeah, now I just met the again, I forget the name, the kind of, I hate to say it, but the kind of sexually aggressive partner there who's got a
It's-
thing for Mario. I can't think of her name.
oh yeah, she's like a witch floating kind of
I don't know.
mystery.
She's on the cover of the box, I think.
Mm, yeah,
But anyway, and I'm wondering with all these different partner characters, am I gonna have to talk to everyone 3 times just to see if I
yeah,
get a different
yeah.
response or something?
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a how many are there? There's 7 different partners, is that right?
Well,
Um,
that makes sense if that's how many crystal, stars there
true.
are.
Mm, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I haven't come to her yet, so I'm only a few hours in. I'm at Hooktail's castle currently. Oh, Madame Flurry, I think is the one you were talking about.
Oh, yeah, that sounds right.
The kind of
Do you
purple
remember how far you got in it back in the day? Just curious.
um, no, I don't actually. Probably about halfway. I was a bit like you, where I had a lot of other competing games to to play,
Uh,
and just never finished it. So, which is kind of sad because I love the series, and I certainly love to finish, especially the Mario games, because you get that sense of satisfaction for completing them, and they're not super difficult. Like this one does have some tough battles, but it's not
yeah.
impossible to do. So, I think it was just a
And I
time.
think there are difficulty options, right? Like, if I remember, I think you can pick normal, easy, or
I
um,
didn't see that when I started this one.
really. Well, I
No.
know there's hints at least, right? Like you can hit
Yes.
ZL or whatever and get a hint. So that's cool anyway.
Yeah, exactly. That makes it heaps easier as well, which is really cool. And even Goombella's little like tattles that she does when you talk to people and she gives you information about them. The fact that the battles now, because normally so this game has save points, but not like a save at any time in the menu thing.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, we were sort of talking about offline, but that's a bit of a disappointment that they didn't add that in, considering they did add it in for Super Mario RPG last year. So they have added more save points, which is good, and they have, I think, given you the ability, if you die during a battle or a boss fight at least, you can go back to the beginning of the boss fight as opposed to going back to the save point, which makes it slightly easier. But still, what do you think about save points versus saving in
Yeah.
the menu?
Um, initially it didn't bug me that much because I was playing, for a good long while. In fact, the first time I was in handheld mode and I played till my battery indicator popped up. So,
Yeah.
but since then, I played a couple times where I only had a few minutes or like in between different things, and I find myself like, oh, where was that save block? And then I got to backtrack to
Yeah.
find it, and
Yeah.
I'm like, for a system like the Switch that you can play docked on a TV or handheld, I think it makes sense that they would have that option where you
Mm.
could save anywhere. And options are just good anyway, right? So,
Yeah.
um, initially I didn't notice it so much, but subsequently it's a little bothersome.
Yeah, I agree. And we're sort of hogging the conversation a little bit, Kirk, sorry, but I know you haven't played this game before. You have some experience with Paper Mario in some way, shape, or form?
I do, but I can't remember how or why. Like, I have a vivid memory of game mechanics and how it was played, but I never owned it. I don't know if I watched someone play it, if I borrowed it, or remember back in the day when you could actually go to a video rental store and rent video games for a week.
Yes.
I might have done that.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I have it, but
Yeah.
obviously didn't finish it. But I remember liking it. I remember
Mhm.
thinking it was one of the more engaging Mario spin-offs. So I think we can call it a spin-off, right? Um, that I
I think
played
so.
through. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. No, it is. I agree. And do you have an opinion on the save? I mean, not for this game in particular because you haven't played it, but generally, because you do play a lot of big games like JRPGs that do have lots of battles and quests and things that between save points you can lose a lot of time if you have to go and redo them. Are you sort of an advocate for save at any time type of situation, or you like the challenge?
Honestly, it depends on the game and how fair I think it is. There are
Hmm.
some where if you can't save whenever you want, but I never feel like the game is going to cheat you, then I'm fine with it.
Hmm.
But games like, as we mentioned before with Shin Megami Tensei 5, where you could play the game for 45 minutes and then go up against a battle where a guy one shot kills you and you never stood a chance and you've lost all that time. Now I'm angry. So
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
if I feel like it's a fair game, then yeah, I don't need the saves. But if you're going to do that to me, at least let me cover my tracks.
Yeah, fair enough. I totally agree with that. And I think Paper Mario is generally quite fair in that regard. Would you agree, Trev?
Yeah, and I mean, there's definitely ways you can make it easier. Like, I mean, like I think one of the things I read, I try not to look up much on this game since I'm planning to publish a review, but I think they let you hold more inventory. Like it used to be maybe 10 and now you can hold 15.
Ah, yeah.
So
Right.
you could just grind for coins and stock up on mushrooms. And if you had enough, even if you played lousy, if your timing was off, and
Yeah.
you'd probably still win the fight just by sheer brute force of healing items. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like yeah, I feel like there's ways you can make it easier or harder so that even with the save system as it is, maybe it won't matter depending on the type of player you are.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. It hasn't been too inconvenient so far. More so, like, for example, I was playing before the show and I wanted to save it because I wanted to go back to the title screen to see Trev, as we were talking about,
Yeah.
if it's saved. Because I now have Coops in my team, I wanted to see if the title screen changed, but you said it did, so I don't really need to check that. But I do not know whether it did that in the old version or not. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So
The
you're
first
saying,
time I did it, I barely like it didn't register because I was
mm,
looking at it. And I'm like, was that always there?
yeah.
And then once it got on my radar, the next time I'm like, oh, that's definitely different. So I started taking pictures like
Oh, cool. Yeah.
from the Switch so I can compare. But
Yeah.
I think that's a nice little touch, and I guess it goes back to celebrating the characters because they're
Hmm.
not just a generic partner to guide Mario from point A to B. They're celebrated. They're even on the title screen, right? So
Yeah, exactly. Yes, and I think I'd have to say I would imagine it wasn't a feature in the first one, but it could have been. I just think maybe 20 years ago was that a thing that the GameCube could have done. I guess it's just a title screen and you just change it, just a different image if your reach
it's
a certain
hard to
point in the
remember though, because like I remember
game.
when I was doing Mario RPG on the Switch, and you were asking me when characters level up, did they always dance? And I'm like,
Yeah.
did they? I can't remember, and I had to actually go back and check.
Yeah, I
And
love
that was new, but in my brain, it just made sense. I'm like, oh no, they must have always done that. But
it. An interesting change that they've made, I think for the better, and this is not actually a change per se. It's a change to the Western version, but this was always the case in the Japanese version. But Vivian, who's a character you'll come across later, is uh, is transgender, and they took that out of the Western version back in 2004. But now it's actually part and parcel of her dialogue that she is transgender. So that's an interesting little change. I don't know why they felt like they had to pull it out back in 2004, but yeah, it was part of the Japanese release, but not the US or European version. So that's a little tweak they've made to keep it, I guess, more in line with the designer's original plans, which is kind of cool.
I just met them. That's the
Oh
Three
yeah, Three
Sisters.
Sisters. Yeah, 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 yeah. The Three
Yeah, I
Sisters.
just because that's where I'm in the woods now, so I just
Right. Yes. Hmm.
met them. I think I fought them once. Spoiler, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think that's a nice thing to do. Any other things you wanted to talk about in terms of Paper Mario, Trev?
um, yeah, I just like going back to the personality and stuff. I like little
Mm,
things like I like getting emails and reading about what's happening in the towns or
mhm.
doing the little side quests they're called, I think, troubles within the game. But
Yeah.
you can help out characters in town, and that's the sort of stuff I've missed in later Paper Mario games. So I'm really enjoying that. And yeah, I'm just having fun. I'm even enjoying the rumble. Like I don't know how it worked on the GameCube, but I put the
Mhm.
rumble settings up strong, and I love running through tall grass just to feel how it
Yeah,
changes. And
that is such a
so
neat
there's a lot
touch.
of little things.
Yeah, that is true. There's a lot of detail they put in. The quest, yeah, it gives it so much more depth, I think. Like it just expands it so much more. Gives you a lot more to do, a lot more longevity in this title. Yeah, which is
Yeah, it
great.
makes you feel like you're helping a living world, like you care for these
Mhm.
characters or the bad characters. They're interesting enough. You want to defeat them. So,
Yeah, just like Hudson, I guess, in a way.
but not
Yeah.
enough melodrama for Kirk.
No, no.
We got to get her drama
Yeah.
somewhere, and I don't watch enough Bridgerton. Oh, yeah, was that a good reference? Did I do okay there?
Yes,
People watching that
yes,
now?
yes,
All right.
yes. Yeah, that's very, very in the zeitgeist kind of reference there, Kirk. Yeah. Well, let's move on to our next topic then, if you're done, Trev, with Paper Mario.
Oh yeah, stay
Yeah,
tuned for my review to learn more of my opinions.
nice. I can't wait to hear your review and to see how it compares to because you reviewed Super Mario RPG last year, I believe, which was a really good review. So I'd
I
love to
did,
see
and
how that compares. Mm.
yeah, similar in a lot of ways and different in a lot of ways. This game's a lot bigger. I can already
Mm.
tell. So
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Yes. I mean, I think you can knock over a Super Mario RPG in probably 10 or so hours, whereas this you've already got 7 into it and you're only up to chapter 2. So
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, definitely a bigger
so
game. Yeah.
yeah, and if
Well,
that's what you're looking for, this is preferable, certainly in terms of content.
yeah, totally. Yes. Yes, exactly. Well, let's move on to the next item, which is a piece of news that dropped during the week that Intellivision has been bought out by Atari. Now, this is really interesting, and I thought Kirk in particular might have some opinions on this because you're of that, and Trev as well. I guess you both had an Atari. I'd never had an Atari, so I don't really have any affiliation with it per se.
You
Um,
haven't played Atari today? Oh man.
no, not well, I think I maybe as a kid, someone had one at someone's house, and I might have seen or played a game at one point at a very young age, but I
You
never had
sound
one
like
myself.
Kirk with Paper Mario. I think I
Yes,
saw it,
yes,
or maybe I played
yeah,
it.
yeah,
See,
exactly.
I'm not the only one this happens to.
Yes, exactly, exactly. But I know we talk about Intellivision and Atari a lot because they're kind of still, Atari has obviously released a lot of games recently. Like, was it 50th anniversary kind of stuff? Like, we're talking about pretty classic
Oh,
titles. But the thing that struck me was that people, I guess, I don't know if it was Atari themselves. I think it was a journalist or someone who said this is like ending kind of the oldest console war type of thing. Before Nintendo versus Sega, was it truly Intellivision versus Atari? Is that how it worked?
It was. It
Right.
was.
So this is huge then.
Yeah, and my side lost, so I'm I'm kind of
Yes,
oh.
because you were an Intellivision person.
yes.
Yeah. So how do you feel? This
Well,
this
yeah, I
news.
mean, from a nostalgic point, well, first of all, it's hilarious to me that this far down the road, there's a winner to this war that
Yeah.
we thought just faded away. For 35 years.
Mhm.
Why are we even still talking about this? So that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, back in the day, because most people had Atari. Atari was the big one. Everybody had Atari. It was easy. It was accessible. I think it was cheaper. It might have been a little bit cheaper too, but it was just one joystick, one button, and anybody could hop on and play it. The Intellivision had this really complicated keypad that a lot of
Mm.
people found uncomfortable and was very awkward to use at first. But boy, once you got the hang of it, it was so easy to do so many things. And it was like so much more in depth. The visuals were better. I mean, we look at them now and you're like, okay, well, a little bit better. But at the time, it was stunning. Going from Atari football to Intellivision football was amazing. But yeah, that keypad
Mm.
was great. And the first thought I had with this was not so much Atari like re-releasing all these games on modern systems, because a lot of the Intellivision games, because they were designed for that keypad, really just don't work. Even with a gamepad, they don't
Mhm.
work the way they were supposed to. But Atari recently released this, what was it called? The 2600 Plus. Trevor, does that sound right? You know anything about that?
Mhm.
That was what, like one of the mini consoles?
Yeah, it was a console that allowed you to play digital versions of the games, but the reason, and it was shaped, it was like an Atari. It was a physical unit that looked like an Atari 2600. But the thing about it was, if you had cartridges, you could plug them
Oh,
in.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that had me losing my mind,
Yeah.
because if they released an Intellivision Plus that allows me to get out all those old cartridges that I have, say it with me, in my basement, it's going to be fantastic, because I have so many games down there, and I have 3 Intellivision units in my basement that don't work for different
Right.
reasons. I'm thinking eventually
Mhm.
I'm going to combine them into one system where every piece works the way it's supposed to. But I could get a new system with better technology so the keypads don't die, and be able to play all these old games straight out of the box when I buy it. I really hope they give me that, because that would be absolutely fantastic. And I would appreciate that more than the Intellivision Amico, which we won't go into right now. But from what I understand, when Atari bought the rights to an Intellivision catalog in the name, they're not bringing in the Amico. The Amico is still a separate system that supposedly whoever's in charge of that now is still going to release. Um, yeah,
Mm.
really looking forward to it. And I would also like to see some modern versions of a lot of these old games, because there were a lot of great games on the Intellivision that people have completely forgotten about, obviously, but I think would really work today with some clever Atari tweaks, like the games that Atari's remastering or remaking. I don't always like what they do with it, but it's always at least an interesting creative approach, and I'd love to see what they do with some of these old Intellivision games.
Cool. Yeah, the 2600 plus, yeah, that is the right one. So, sorry, are you saying they are releasing an Intellivision version of like an Intellivision version of that 2600 plus,
I'm not saying they
or you
are.
want them to?
I want them to. I'm
Okay.
hoping that there's a plan for that. I don't know how big the market is. Intellivision just doesn't have the history and the branding of Atari, so it'd be a
Mm,
pretty niche audience for it. And I don't know if it would make sense to pump the money into a physical system that they could release that way. Um, but
yeah.
if they do, I'm there, and I would pay twice its worth to get it.
Yeah.
Who is the modern day equivalent, Kirk, of George Plimpton? If we can find that, I think the advertising is there.
I don't think there is. Yeah, because again, does anyone want to know who George Plimpton was? Should I give a background on why he was chosen to be the
I
television spokesperson?
Why? Kinda
Well,
curious.
he would briefly, he was a reporter. What he would do is he would play professional sports. He would write about the sport, but he would actually train with the team, and he would go on the field and play. Now, not like during real games, but during preseasons. I think his football stint was with the Detroit Lions.
Nice.
Wrote a book. I believe it was called Paper Lion. So if why I can remember this and not whether I played a Mario game,
Paper Mario
I have
and
no idea.
President Hudson's name, yeah.
Yeah, but here I am with George Plimpton and Paper Lion.
Yeah.
So yeah, and in television, the thing that they really sold themselves on when they first came out was the quality of the sports games. So they got a guy who has written about and played sports, because back in the day when you made a gaming system, you didn't want to market it towards the kids, you were marketing it towards their parents, because they were the ones
Right.
buying it. So the dads are all like, "Oh yeah, George Plimpton, I read his book. I'll get this for my kid." Now, of course, that didn't work, and
Right.
now they do it the way they should do it. Market it to the child and let the kid scream until his parents give in.
Yeah. Yeah, that
But yeah,
works.
so I don't know who they would have do that.
Yeah. That's
They had the ET kid too. Don't forget that when they made the switch, they brought in his name I can't remember. Who was the kid who played Elliot?
Oh,
in
Elliot. I
the-
remember Elliot, I don't remember the actor's name.
Oh,
And
yeah,
I know
he
Drew
was also
wasn't
in
Drew
Cloak and
Barrymore his
Dagger,
sister?
which was a
yes, Drew
video
Yeah,
game
Barrymore.
movie.
I remember that.
Yeah, I
Sorry,
can't
sorry, Elliot.
Yeah,
Sorry,
but
Elliot
yeah,
actor.
I can't remember his name.
once they started focusing on their space games, then they brought him in to be like he talked to George. They would have a discussion about
I'd have to say Chris Pratt, right? Because he's doing everything
Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
That could be. I was thinking of someone like Anderson Cooper,
Ah,
but that's because he looks a little like him and maybe has reported on a lot of these things.
Okay. So
So
he's a journalist as well, Anderson Cooper.
I was gonna say, does Gemma know any of these
No, I
people in
don't.
Australia?
I know who.
yeah.
I,
Trying to think of a
I know who
prominent
Chris Pratt
Australian we can
is. Yeah.
toss out there.
Devo.
Devo?
Okay.
Well, that's left field, but yeah, I do know who Devo is.
I
They're
don't
not
know. I
Australian
couldn't think
though.
of anyone else off the top of my head.
How about what about Yahoo Serious?
Oh,
Yeah,
there
I
you go.
don't know if
George Lazenby, the
yes,
Australian James
yes, very
Bond.
good, very good. It'd be someone like no, I can't even think of someone's name now. It'd be someone that obscure that you would know anyway, like some Australian celebrity that's huge in Australia that no one outside of Australia knows. Basically,
I
yeah.
just gotta say, if they do release that Intellivision adapter, I fear that Kirk's gonna wind up like Skinner did when he was recycling in his garage and he got buried under a stack of newspapers for like a week and everyone thought he was dead. Like we're gonna have to like text Kirk's wife and be like, check the basement.
Yeah,
It could happen.
it could happen. It could really happen.
Yeah.
Now, for our Nintendo audience, there are a slew of games that I think could work with Nintendo's controller with the
Mhm.
Joy-Con. So there are some games that absolutely they could bring over in like a little pack of 4, 10, whatever, maybe even just one if they're going to update it. And they could work and they'd be a lot of fun. And if that happens, I'm going to be all over it. So
Cool.
you could stick with pure Nintendo for coverage of anything in television related.
Yeah, we've got our man on the job. It's Krik.
Yes. Yeah, I'm more qualified than any other gaming site that you're going to, guaranteed.
I love that. Thank you, Krik.
Yep.
And I guess if listeners do have an interest or questions, let us know and we will answer them for you. Because yeah, we have intel on Intellivision. So yeah,
That's right.
that can be our new motto. Anything else? Trev, did you have any other opinions on that news before we move on?
No, I'm excited. I'm excited for it, and I think it wouldn't surprise me to see because Atari's been, there's been a lot of Atari flashback systems and handheld systems and mini consoles and the VCS, and these games are really out there. So I would imagine they would have to do something similarly with Intellivision, and I'll just be glad because I haven't played Intellivision. I think there was a GameCube compilation, which was the last time I played it, and
Yep.
a lot of the
There was
games.
one for there was one for the DS too.
Oh, see, I never played that one. I remember the Cube; it didn't translate good, and there was one in the PlayStation. I liked. They had a little Intellivision song that would play during the intro. I liked that, but yeah, it's been a while
Cool.
for me.
Yeah. And with the console war, is that similar to how, for me, it was Nintendo versus Sega. And when Sega started releasing games on Nintendo, it was like I was on the winning side because I was a Nintendo fan. Is that akin to how you feel? Except the opposite,
Yeah,
kind of.
yeah, I think so. Except
Yeah.
also, there wasn't a point, any realistic Intellivision fan, there was never a point where we thought they were going to take over Atari. You just didn't.
Right.
It wasn't ever going to be that big. We just wanted to make sure that it was big enough that it wouldn't shut down and disappear.
Yeah.
And in fact, it outlasted Atari because even when Mattel was done making Intellivision games, this like a bunch of the developers created I can't remember the name of this, but it was like an Intellivision company where they continued to develop games clear up into the late 80s and I think early 90s. Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I mean, they weren't in stores and you would have to know where to get them. Like you subscribe to a newsletter and they would tell you what games were coming out and you could buy them. So
Yeah.
it lasted a while. There were a lot of rabid fans who really wanted to keep that alive.
Wow. Very cool. I love that. Yeah, that's awesome. It'd be nice to know if anyone's still doing that. People still make NES games, right? I wonder if there are any hardcore devs who are still making games for the Intellivision.
Or Game Boy games, so you could still get new Game Boy cartridges every now and again
Yes.
from some odd
Yeah.
little companies.
Those same fans who were subscribing to the Intellivision
Yeah.
newsletter subscribe to Pure Nintendo
Yeah.
magazine
Yeah.
because
Well,
we're the modern
Yeah.
day Intellivision
that's true
newsletter.
because I am and was a subscriber to both.
There you go. Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for that debrief on Intellivision being bought out by Atari. Awesome work. Let's move on to this is a bit of a shorter piece because I don't think either of us have tried it yet, but there is a bit of excitement because Dave the Diver has received some free DLC, and I just love that it's free. And it's the Godzilla DLC that we was announced a couple of months ago in time for the PlayStation release of Dave the Diver. We weren't sure at first whether it was coming to the Switch. It is. It's here. It's available now. Um, Trev, you haven't had a chance to try it, have you?
I have not. I did download it, and I had to actually archive a game to my
Yeah.
my memory card is maybe slightly bigger than Justin's, but it's not nearly big enough for all the games I've reviewed and bought. And
Yeah.
but I think
Same.
it's going to be a decent update because it was a couple gigs, and
Mhm.
I know Jen will be excited because she played the game even more than me. We kind of played together, like we would
Mhm.
alternate. Because I think the format was like 2 dives and then the night at the restaurant, so we would kind of alternate.
Yeah, yep, that was
But
it.
I think
Mhm.
she'll really like it, and I should probably look at her playtime. I bet it's one of her more played games, and I mean,
Cool.
it was in my top 10, I think, last year for
Yeah, me
game
too.
of the year. So I don't know if this DLC will be enough to put it in consideration again,
That's
but
a good point.
I'm excited to eventually play it.
Yeah. Well, maybe if we get to it, we can, talk about it in the coming weeks, but yes, it is out now for listeners who are fans of Dead the Diver and weren't aware. Go and check it out. It is free, and I love that. Apparently, it is only available until November, so, yeah, definitely download it while
Oh, I
it's
didn't know
there.
that.
Yeah, that's what I've read online, so I don't know why, and maybe come November, it won't be free, for example, or
Oh
it's
yeah, the price they're
yeah.
charging.
Yeah, so definitely jump on board with that one. The next piece of news is that Nintendo is opening a new store in San Francisco, which is pretty exciting because there is only one Nintendo store in the US currently, and it's in New York. So this is on the other side of the country, on the West Coast. Had to think for a second. Geography, West, yes. And yeah, neither of you are anywhere near San Francisco, though, are you? I
Nope.
don't think. So, nope.
I am
Yeah.
not, but I'm still excited for it because
Yeah, yeah.
you know, I mean, conceivably, how could Nintendo, have stores throughout, like the U.S. or even the world?
Mhm.
They're a big enough company. Like I'm not expecting a Nintendo store in like Podunk, USA or whatever, but there's a lot of big metropolitan areas, and I'd like to see Nintendo stores pop up everywhere
Yeah,
because
me too. Yeah.
I think that's a potential market.
Oh, absolutely. The ones that I went to in Japan, there are 2. There's one in Kyoto and in Tokyo, and they are huge, and they were very, very busy both times I went there, just recently, like in April. So, and New York, I've been there a couple of times, and that was also, very big and very busy. I think the Japan one might have been bigger, but New York is a bit deceiving because it's on 2 levels, and where
Oh.
both the Japanese ones are 1 level, but they're quite spread out, and yeah, I love it. I mean, I'm a sucker for some cool merch. So yeah, and especially seeing things like Pikmin was amazing. I'm just trying to see whether there's actually one in Australia. I don't think there is, but there might be one in Melbourne potentially, which is where like Nintendo Australia's headquarters is. So possibly there is one in Australia. There's definitely not one in Brisbane where I'm from. But yeah, if I go to Melbourne again, maybe for PAX, if I make it this year, I'll have to check out and see if that's something that exists and something I can visit and compare it to the others across the world. But yeah, I certainly would love to see more of them. And I think, yeah, like you said, they're a big company. They've been around over 100 years. They've got plenty of franchises to to kind of sell merch for. So I think I told you guys they have separate sections. In Japan, there's the Pikmin area, there's the Animal Crossing area, the Zelda, the Mario. It's like a paradise if you're a Nintendo fan. Anyway, I was in paradise. So yeah, that's happening. I don't know when it's opening. I think it was 2025 from memory from the press release. Does it sound right to you guys?
I can't imagine it would take that long to open a Nintendo store. I mean,
I
the
Oh
thought
building,
it
yeah,
they
was
just
like,
bought a vacant building, right? And they just got to go in and stock the shelves and add some special effects.
maybe I'm wrong.
yeah, was it late 2024? I thought
Yeah.
maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
No, it's set to open in
Okay.
2025. That's what the announcement says. Yeah, not sure
I'll
why.
take your word
I
for it.
guess what is it,
Yep.
May? Yeah. No, it's a fact. It is a fact. You heard it here first. Not really. It's news. But
Maybe they're doing the 2-floor store again, or maybe it's going to be big like Japan, or
yeah.
maybe it's going to be big like Japan and 2 floors.
Wow.
So it's like the best of both.
Yeah, that would be cool.
A Nintendo
Yeah.
Mall.
The Nintendo District. They're all in the same area, the Nintendo District. Yeah.
Oh man. Can you imagine though, like every first party game would be like a party at a Nintendo store.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
even something maybe smaller, like an Endless Ocean. Can you imagine what they could do at a Nintendo store? You know, they'd be mobbed for launch day, launch week, whatever.
You know what? That just made me think, Trev, maybe they're going to coincide the opening with the Switch 2 release.
Oh, that would make sense. 2025.
That
Yes,
does make
Jemma.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
imagine like the photos of all the people outside in line waiting to get their hands on the system?
Yeah.
And they've got the
Oh
Nintendo
my
sign in the background
goodness.
instead of Best Buy.
Yep.
People are going to start camping out now. They're going to listen to this podcast and they're going to start camping
Yeah.
out.
I may start the hike now to San Francisco just to make sure I'm there in time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And maybe that's why they haven't announced an opening date, because that might just be
Yeah.
the Switch 2 release date. So, yeah. Yeah, there you go. Interesting. Very cool. Well, we'll see when there is a date, and we'll find out more about that. As we get closer to 2025, we've still got a bit of a ways to go yet, so still half a whole year, a bit more. Let's move on to some games that we're playing then for the rest of the show. So I guess I'll begin since I seem to be first on the list. But my current review title, and when Paper Mario comes out, it's very easy to distract oneself from review titles, unfortunately, because it's Paper Mario and you just want to play it. But I have been playing something called Read Only Memories Neurodiver, and I don't know if either of you remember that I reviewed another Read Only Memories title a couple of years ago on the Switch. So when I saw this in our review queue, I'm like, hang on a sec. I think I've played the previous game in the series, and I had, and I quite enjoyed the last
Was
one.
that integral or?
2064, I think it was.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and I really enjoyed it. So what it is it's a visual novel, I suppose. It's a bit point and clicky. There's a few interactive scenes that you can move a cursor around and interact with doors and objects and stuff like that. But it's mostly a visual novel. Excuse me. And this one's set after 2064, I think a couple of years after. The premise, I don't think any of the characters are the same. The premise is that you play the role of this, I guess she's kind of like an android sort of creature. And I think she has the ability so the neurodiver is like this psychic creature who can interact with people's memories, basically. And she, the android, I think her name is, gosh, forgotten. It's like C88 or something. It's like numbers and letters. She uses the neurodiver. They kind of bond. They have this bond, and they can jump into people's memories to help fix them. So, say you've forgotten something, you can help this person relive this memory with them present. And this C88, I'm going to call her. That's not her name, but it's something like that. She can direct them through the memories, and there's little glitches that she can fix. So the plot is that someone is actually going and disturbing people's memories and erasing parts and kind of rearranging the memories for whatever reason.
ES88. I just looked it up.
ES88, thank you. I was pretty sure it was 88. I couldn't remember the letters. ES88, thank you. And so ES88 is now tasked with finding this person and finding out what's the deal with his memory, kind of not so much erasures, but is erasure a word? Anyway, they're erasing memories. They're not quite.
Sounds like it should
Yeah,
be.
yeah. They're tampering with them. So there's a bit of a story there. It's it's a great game. It's fun and interesting, and the characters are quite fleshed out. C88 ES88 has quite a good personality. She's quite funny. Her voice acting is really good. There's a lot of voice acting in this game, so there's really,
Oh, nice.
yeah. So it's a good little interactive novel. It's not, I haven't finished it, but it's not as long as the previous one, as far as I'm aware. And the one thing I will say is it has touchscreen capabilities in handheld, but it doesn't really do anything. So I just don't know what the point of it is. So, for example, if you're in a room and you could, use your left stick to move the cursor to the door, and then you can press A button to interact with the door, you can touch the screen, and the cursor will move to the door, but it doesn't do anything. It doesn't interact. It just moves the cursor there. I'm like, I guess you
Mm.
kind of takes the place of the L stick, I suppose, but then you still have to press the A button, so you can't
You
really.
can't like double tap it or nothing.
No. So that's a little. I don't know. I think they
Mm.
maybe a lost opportunity. They could have made it fully touchscreen capable because it is very much that kind of style. It's very point and click, very interactive. So that's maybe one little downside. But it is out. It came out May the 16th, so it's out now. It costs $14.99. I will be reviewing it during the week. I'll be posting my review during the week and keep an eye out for my final score. But yeah, definitely, I definitely enjoyed the previous one, so I'm excited to get further into this one and see what the plot is like because the plot of the last one was very interesting and kind of a little bit emotional as well. So we'll see how this one fares. But that's me currently, apart from Paper Mario. So, what else have we got on our list? Who would like to talk about what they're playing next? Do we have time for you, Trev?
Uh, yeah. Well, I had a couple. I'll do one for the moment anyway.
Sure.
So we had some friends over last weekend, and the Switch is a great party machine, and there's so many games to choose from. But the two I want to talk about, well, one I've talked about many times. It was the Rift Tracks game,
Mm-hmm.
which is a lot similar to like the Jackbox Party. You can each play on your mobile device, so you only need one controller really, and it's just such a fun game. And we played it quite a bit, and what I really like about it is you can just if you know Mystery Science Theater, it's making funny jokes or captions or reactions to what's going on screen, but you can write your own because if you pick choices, that's an option too. But eventually, you're going to run out. They're going to recycle. But when you can write your own, the only limits are your imagination. And as a writer, I like to think that I'm reasonably good at coming up with some funny dialogue. So
Yeah.
we just had a blast, and you can tweak it. You can vote for like your top 3 favorites. You can set up the scoring so to keep it competitive, and just so much fun. I think I don't. Kirk, did you review that one or did you review the other one? The riff?
Yeah, I did Rift Tracks. Yep.
Yeah, and it's just so much fun, and I can't recommend it enough. I think that was also one of my favorites from whatever year it came out.
Mm.
But the other party game I was playing was Shovel Knight Showdown, which I
Oh.
reviewed back in the day on Pure Nintendo. You can check out that review.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like a Smash Brothers, but we had a lot of fun, and we played through every level. And I'm still unlocking stuff like new character skins and stuff, and I put in double-digit hours in it anyway. So,
Wow.
yeah, it's a fun group game and gorgeous pixel. I mean, it's Shovel Knight, so it looks like Shovel Knight. It sounds like Shovel Knight, and
Yeah. Yeah.
um, just a lot of chaotic fun, especially on the stages where the background characters can interfere with you. So, yeah, if you're going to be throwing a party or have friends over, those are 2 great group games. Rift Tracks is only a group game. Shovel Knight you can play on your own against the CPU. So, yeah, both recommended.
Very cool. Yeah, I've not tried that. So that was 2019 you reviewed that one. Way back when?
Yeah, and of course that was last week, and I was playing them before I got Paper Mario, which is my
Mm.
big review game. But
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Very, very cool. Krik, what are you playing at the moment?
I'm playing a game I mentioned, was it last week, 2 weeks ago? We got a review code for Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes, and it kind of disappeared on
Mhm.
us and then resurfaced.
Yes.
But that turned out the best because the Nintendo version, as we mentioned, had issues, had a lot of performance issues that brought down the
Mhm.
reviews. So I got started late. They haven't released the patch yet, 505 Games, but they have announced that they're going to have an announcement for it within the next few days.
Cool.
So I'm hoping the patch comes at any time. In preparation for that, I've been digging deeper into it and dealing with some of the technical issues so that when the patch does arrive, I'm ready to go. And if it solves the problems, then I'll be able to review the game as it stands now, as opposed to when it first came out.
Cool.
But even with the glitches, I'm enjoying it. It's a JRPG made for JRPG fans. In fact, I think they dedicate the game to the fans at the very beginning,
Nice.
uh, with a lot of characters that shift around a lot. It's called 100 Heroes for a reason.
Mm.
Um, but just some really good turn-based battles. But also the thing I'm enjoying right now the most is the writing. It's really clever, and there are some really sharp, interesting characters to follow. Not very melodramatic so far. Not that it needs to be if it's going to carry itself just on its sort of like bouncy vibe, then I'm happy to take that too. But I'm having fun with it, and probably would have got a pretty decent review from me regardless of some of the performance things, which are annoying but not game breaking. At least I haven't encountered anything yet. But we'll see what
Mm.
the patch addresses and then take it from there.
How many heroes have you come across so far?
I have, well, it starts you out with a group of 6, most of whom leave pretty quickly. At least 3 of them do, I believe. And then you've got 3 more, and I think I've added 4 since then.
Mhm.
I've got a long way to go. I'm only about 10 hours
Mm.
into it. But I do like the games where if they're going to give me that many heroes, I like it better when they sort of like shift them in and out as opposed to forcing me to decide who to pick. I don't mind picking a few of them, but if they're going to give
Yeah.
me that many, then a lot of characters I might like, I have to let slide because someone else came along who's just much more powerful and useful. And that kind of always makes me sad when one of my favorites has to get fired because it just
Yeah.
wasn't cutting it
Yeah.
anymore. And it seems to me that's the way it's going. I don't know if it'll be that way going forward or if I'm always going to, have this giant pool of heroes to choose from. So we'll find out.
Yeah, I think I would find it very hard to decide between 100 people. So, yeah, I think that's good if they can kind of help you along a little bit. Hopefully the ones you like, though, if they do leave, they come back at
Yeah.
some point. Is that a thing that might happen without spoiling?
I believe so because one of the characters who you see like is one of the central characters like in the cover art is there at the beginning of the game and then goes away. Although actually I don't know how he's going to get used later because they also announced the DLC that's coming later this year, and he gets his own story, and there's a female character who gets her own story, and I haven't even met her in the game yet. So it could be that they get full stories down the road, and they're not going to be part of this initial step.
It's awesome that they have DLC planned. That gives it a lot more longevity as well. So,
Yeah, and I think that's fair too for like a Kickstarter game. This was
ah,
fun on Kickstarter, so releasing it before they have that done, I think is fair. I know a lot of people will be upset if they have to pay for that.
mhm.
Um, but if they're putting out, they're collecting their money finally, they're getting a lot of things, then they can expand how big those DLC stories may have been than if they tried to roll them into the initial release. So
Yeah,
I'm fine with. We'll see if it warrants buying it. I'm not far enough into the game yet, but you know
yeah.
I've got to figure that out. Half a
Cool.
year.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Kirk. Look forward to hearing your final thoughts on that one as well. Did you want to mention your last one, Trev? We've got a couple minutes left if you like.
Oh, yeah, sure. Real quick, I wasn't going to put this on because this is an NES game, and um, I don't know how many for this podcast are interested in old games, but I wanted to put it on because last week you guys were talking about like a Minish Cap,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
which is a Capcom Zelda game, and I've been playing on the NES Willow, which is loosely based on the film. Um,
Right, yes.
fairly loosely. I'm not even sure if it was its own game, like reskinned for Willow. But
Uh,
anyway, this was Capcom, and it's very much in the style of classic NES Zelda.
okay.
So I heard you guys talking about that, and I'm like, I wonder if Nintendo saw Willow on the NES, and they're like, hey, let's give these guys a shot at the Oracle games or,
Mm.
a Minish Cap. This is one I picked up from a local shop on a whim, thinking I could play it with Jen because I know she likes NES Zelda especially, and we're having a lot of fun. It's one of those that escaped me as a kid, and it looks terrific for an NES game. It almost looks like a Super Nintendo launch game in certain respects, but yeah, I like the formula. It's like Zelda with certain elements of uh the second one, not Link's Awakening, Link to the
Oh,
uh,
Zelda 2, do you mean? Like literally the
Adventure of
second one?
Link. Thank you.
Eventually, yeah, yeah.
Because it's got you level up, you're an experience and stuff. But yeah, if
Mm.
you're a fan of classic Zelda or Capcom Zelda work and you want to see potentially what they were doing that earned them the right to get that, take a look at Willow on the NES. It's unfortunately licensing's never going to let it come to Switch Online unless they revamp it like DuckTales or something. But just a great little game, and one that I grabbed on a whim and I was pleasantly surprised by.
Wow. When did you pick this up? How long ago?
Um, Actually, when we had company, we went to one of the local shops because they're gamers too.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the only one that bought something. Actually, I saw Willow, and I said, you know what? I said, this is a Capcom game, and I pretty much love everything they did on NES.
Yeah.
And
That's a
I
good
know
find.
Jen's a Zelda fan, but her heart belongs with the NES Zelda because that was her first.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
said, I wonder if we could play this together. And yeah, we've been I've been playing Paper Mario on my own,
Mm-hmm.
and Willow is the game I'm playing with Jen. It's not a 2-player game, but we take turns, and there's no in-game map, so you really gotta
Yeah.
you gotta remember. And there's a
Right.
lot of items, but I could very much picture it with a Link sprite instead
Yeah.
of a Willow sprite.
Yeah. That is so cool. Do you mind telling us how much it cost? I'm just interested because it sounds like
Yeah,
it's expensive.
it was about $20, I think, which I don't know what the going rate is on like Price Charter or everything, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm always happy, even if it's a little more expensive. I'm always happy to support local shops,
Yeah.
as opposed to eBay because you factor in tax and shipping. So,
Mm. I think that sounds
um,
like a good find, honestly. Yeah.
yeah. And for an NES game, it's long. We've already sunk several hours into it, and
Mm.
I've tried not to look up a walkthrough, which is hard not to do for an NES game.
Yeah.
But I think we're about 2/3 through,
Yeah. Okay.
and I feel like we've already sunk, I don't know, probably a couple hours each night over the course of, I don't know, 4 or 5 days anyway. So,
Yeah. Here's an interesting
yeah.
fact to do with this game. So it was released in 1989 in Japan in July, then followed in December 1989 in North America. Didn't come out in Europe until April 1993. So four
Wow.
4 years to come to Europe,
That's
which,
crazy.
like, what year was Willow? 1988, the movie was 1988. A year later, you get a game in
Yeah.
America. 5 years later, from the movie's release in Europe. Probably not the best timing for Mark.
I wonder if Willow was on the radar of kids in 93
Yeah.
or even in 89, to be honest, because it was,
Someone over there launched like one of those Operation Rainfall campaigns, like they did for Xenoblade Chronicles on the Wii. Get Willowed. I want to know what the other two titles were that they were demanding.
oh man, that's funny.
Yes, exactly. It makes me think about how Paper Mario, for example, is released worldwide, like Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door. For Switch came out across the world at the same time. That's 2024. Go back to the 80s, 90s. And that's what happened. We in Europe. Well, I mean, it may not have come into Australia. It just says Europe. I don't know if there was an Australian release, but yeah, big difference. And even Paper Mario, the GameCube version, I think there was a year difference between Japan, America, and Europe. So yeah, we've come a long way in the last 20 years, and it's for the better, I would say.
Mm, I
Yeah.
agree.
Anyway, that's very interesting. I love hearing about quirky things like that. So if I was listening to the podcast, I would be grateful that you brought it up. So thank you, Trev. I don't know. Hopefully our listeners agree.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
have to remember to ask Justin if he has any experience with this one because I know he grew up
Yeah.
with an NES too.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. Thank you. Does anyone else have anything to add before we close off the show?
I have one quick anecdote because I think you might
Sure.
find it interesting. Just before we started recording this, Sophie, who's home from college, came in and asked me if she buys a game on the Switch, if it'll go onto my credit card or hers. And I was like, why? What are you buying? Lego City Undercover.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
She's here with her boyfriend. I guess he's never played the game. And remember, she took that game. I had the physical copy of that game.
Yeah.
Took it to college and lost it. But
Yeah.
Ah, Sophie.
yeah, well, she's going to make it right by buying it digitally, so she won't have to worry about using it
Yeah.
again.
Hopefully,
Probably up there right
hopefully it's
now.
on sale this week.
Yeah, that's true. It was $5 at one point. What was it? Late last year,
Yeah, it was very
and I
cheap.
didn't get it. I guess I should have.
Mm. Oh well, we have to. Well, she's already played it, so I'm sure she knows that it's good already. But yeah, that's awesome. Yes, definitely a
Yep.
good game. Definitely worth buying, especially if it's on sale. Awesome. Thank you, Kirk. Anything from you,
Yep.
Trev?
My Switch 2 rumor is they're going to have a Switch Online is going to have Intellivision games like a virtual console.
They're
Yeah.
going to arrive before the GameCube games. Fans are
Yeah.
going to be. I'll be the only one thinking, yeah, well, that makes sense.
You heard
Yeah.
it here first.
Well, when it happens, I will give you my top 10 must-play in television games.
Excellent. I hope that's a list you have already worked on and it's ready to go in your head.
I could whip it up in 15 seconds if you needed me to, but we'll save that for another time.
Yeah, okay. Awesome. Well, thank you both very much. Thank you, listeners, for joining us again this week. And if you'd like to follow us, we are on Twitter/X, X/Twitter, however you want to say it. X, formerly known as Twitter, as they say, Mastodon and Blue Sky. We are working on our next issue of the Pure Nintendo magazine that we briefly mentioned during the show. So if you'd like to support us, please head on over to patreon.com/Pure Nintendo and you can get yourself on the list for the next issue, which will be coming out in the next couple of months. And until next week, thank you and game on, everybody. Bye.
See ya.